Welcome to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Podiobook Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. I'm really excited today because we're going to be speaking with Angela Lenhardt. Angela is not only an author, but she is an intuitive consultant, a life coach, and a spiritual healer. She wrote a wonderful book, A Charmed Journey, an inspired guide to personal transformation. Angela doesn't tell us, she shows us how she made wonderful changes in her life and how she has touched countless people's lives across the country as a spiritual teacher of empowerment, intuitive business consulting, and inspirational talks. I'm so glad that she decided to be a part of the book club. Welcome the newest member of the book club, author and intuitive coach, Angela Lenhardt. Angela, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and being the newest member of the book club. I'm so excited that you're here today. How are you?
Hi, I'm awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Kelly. It's truly a pleasure.
No, the pleasure is mine. I so enjoy talking to authors and listening to their journey and how your book became a book and what that was like for you and passing on insight and knowledge to others that are listening. Because as authors, we all come to the same places. We all want our book to be published, but sometimes the journey to get there can be challenging, to say the least.
And daunting.
Yes, and daunting. So I'm curious, tell me how your book became a book. Did you always know that it was going to be a book?
I didn't have the plan to write a book. That wasn't even in my consciousness, but my life experiences led me to the place where one day I was intuitively told, I have a strong faith, so I believe in God and the power of the universe and all of that. And I was intuitively told that if I wanted to change my life, I needed to do these certain things. And then I needed to share my story in a book. And I had no idea what I was doing or how to do it. And I didn't have the resources to find all the right people. But I just sat down one day and opened up my laptop and began to share on my computer. And eventually it created a manuscript and then a book, and here it is. and that's just the path that I have taken.
And that sounds so exciting because you really didn't know what was going to happen, right? You were just kind of going with it. So I know that the book has a lot to do with your life and your experiences and how you came to where you are even today, even though the book was published in 2014, because I was reading that there's a lot of things in the book that you still practice and probably do to this day. So I'm really interested in Angela as this young girl, as you talk about in your book and your experiences, and how you even kind of realize that you have this intuitive gift. How did all of that come about for you?
Well, I didn't realize I had an intuitive gift. I'm extremely humbled with it because it is a blessing. It's also a lot of work, and I do continuous work on myself every single day through a lot of prayer and meditation, and always checking in with myself and make sure that I'm working for the highest good. And I serve, the person in front of me. So whoever shows up, I know that I have to show up being my best self. But I wasn't my best self until I mastered certain lessons, detachment and discipline and following my own intuitive guidance and showing up for my own life. I mean, those were just a small, minuscule of life lessons that I had to learn in order, I think, to authentically be able to coach somebody or to teach them and to guide them on their journey. I'm all about having a coach that has been there and done that and knows what they're talking about. So I guess I've chosen a path that I had to definitely learn the lessons the hard way in order to be able to stand in front of someone and say, you're going to be okay. This is how you do it. It's going to be fine. The floor is going to drop out from underneath of you. So just learn how to fly.
That's good advice. I think for most people, and I'm really speaking for myself, and I think I always try to be my better self. When you are coaching people, and especially in your book, do you talk about the need for patience? Because that is where I really tend to fall short. When I want things, or I want to get to that other side. But then you're saying that, there's things you have to learn and lessons you have to do. And I tend to get impatient with myself and sometimes sabotage myself. Does your book talk about that and maybe techniques to try to overcome that?
This A Charm Journey doesn't talk about that because I wasn't there, like in that headspace to be able to share in that type of detail. But I have a feeling that my next book will be about the techniques that I used in order to really cultivate myself and to be able to tune into a power greater than me. So my A Charm Journey is about pretty much just my life lessons and how the universe made me grow up. And I was able to recognize what was being represented in front of me because, life works as a mirror. So what you see in somebody else is typically what's active within you. And so if you can approach life and situations as, what is this saying about me? It's always a point to take like this internal reflection and be able to change something within how you are being in the world. And I found that patience is such a challenge for the ego because the ego doesn't want to be patient, and I had to learn this. I mean, my greatest lesson on learning patience is when I'm in a hurry, I'll go to the grocery store and I'll stand in the slowest line. It'll be, the checker will be right there, and all of a sudden they'll like, oh, I'm going on a coffee break, and I'll be standing there thinking, are you kidding me? I've got things to do, and the universe is like, I'm sorry, but you're going to stand here and wait, and then you're going to learn how to enjoy it while you're here. So just take it with a grain of salt. But
see, I think that's the key, right? Learning how to enjoy it so that it's not an annoyance or a burden.
Well, as soon as it's an annoyance or a burden, or you start to get upset, you're asking for another lesson to come, to be magnetized towards you. So I learned a long time ago, don't overreact and don't jump, create another story. Just be present and be extremely nice, even if I don't want to, just again, show up, being authentic, like your true self, which is a loving, kind individual, and be that to the person or the animal in front of you.
So I was reading about your book, and you had mentioned the 10 daily habits. That part of your book covers the 10 daily habits, and these are things that you practice and do. Can you go into maybe what some of those habits are?
Well, I don't even remember those anymore. It was so long ago that I haven't read the book. And honestly, I haven't read it for so long. To be honest, I don't even know if I read my book. I just know that I wrote the book. And,
right.
I do. I know a couple of them, and definitely prayer and meditation every single day. I try to eat healthy, definitely nutrition. You have to have balanced nutrition in your diet. Try to do your best. I mean, I would say that, I drink wine, I drink alcohol, I love sugar, I like chocolate. So I don't tell myself I can't have any of that, because I have the personality that as soon as I'm told I can't do something or eat something or go somewhere, I'm like, well, watch me. And it's almost like this internal challenge to my ego and inner child. And that never works well. So I just try to do everything a little bit in moderation. And, if you approach it as you have to give that part of yourself what it needs, that inner child part of self. So it's satiated and it feels like it's that voice is being heard and loved and appreciated. And sometimes, like, the world does call for an extra dose of chocolate or chips or salt or something like that. So I'm not one of those individuals that say deprive yourself. Just pay attention to what you're doing while you're doing it, and realize that all of those vices that we have in our world is usually compensating for something that's lacking within our own life. So just to recognize that. And so nutrition, health I've been studying it for so many years, and I try to definitely, fruits and veggies, right? Protein.
Yeah.
Balance out your system, make it alkaline, water, drink plenty of water. And if you're one of those people that feel guilty every time you eat something, you're actually telling your body, I shouldn't be doing this. This isn't good for me. Which you have to change the narrative of what you're doing and say, even though you're eating that cupcake, just say, I'm eating this cupcake and it's so good for me and I love it. And pretty soon, you might not even have to finish the cupcake because maybe all you needed was one bite. But as soon as we begin to resist that part of ourselves and almost talk down to ourselves is when we tend to do it more. So I think what the intention is to just accept who you are and learn how to manage the mind and to listen to the soul and align them both.
So in your book, you talk about the ABCs of spiritual, or the ABCs, and it was spiritual, emotional, and physical interactions with the universe. Mm-hmm. When you say that, tell me exactly what you mean by that.
Well, first of all, I'm missing one in there, the mental aspect. So there's, primarily four, but so the spiritual aspect is our spiritual life, is our connectiveness to God or to the source or divine or, nothingness, whatever works for you, and based off of, based on our upbringings and how we've been taught by our parents or mentors or teachers or clergy, we have this certain philosophy about a higher power. And, I grew up in a Christian and Catholic, but I have studied different religions from all over the world, and I can love and appreciate them all. I know what works for me, so I stick with what works for me, but that doesn't mean that it works for everyone. So, what is your spiritual life? What does that look like? The emotional world is so important because our emotional life, like those emotions that run through our veins consistently, whether it's joy, happiness, love, fear, anxiety, they begin to manifest in the body and begin to create dis-ease. So really paying attention to what emotions are fueling you is what begins to show up in the outside world. It's so powerful. So that is so important, just to maintain a healthy mind, body, and spirit. The mental world are the thoughts that you tell yourself consistently. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm this, that, the other. And again, that's based off of maybe your old story or what people have told you in the past, and that can absolutely create limiting barriers around who you are. So it's really important to understand, what is my mental life? What is my brain saying? What is my mind continuously repeating? And get in touch with what your theme is, because that will build constructs around your ability to move forward. And finally, the physical world, what we talked about before, how are you taking care of your body? Are you exercising? Are you going outside? Are you standing in the sunshine? Mother Nature is the greatest teacher of them all. And she's extremely powerful, and she provides love. I mean, just go outside and pay attention to animals. Pay attention to a tree. Pay attention to what a storm looks like when it comes in. You can see the love. You can also see the energy that goes along with it, and it's very loving and nurturing. So, how are you nurturing yourself? We have to really take command of our own lives. So it's aligning the spiritual world, the mental world, the emotional world, and our physical bodies to be able to be that force in the world.
Yeah, I like the way that sounds. So when you were on your journey, right, and the journey that became this book, and you mentioned that the lessons that you had to learn and learning the intuitive process, who did you go? Where did you find the knowledge that you were seeking? Who did you learn from?
I always say to learn from people who you want to be like and know more than you. And so I really didn't, to be honest. I had a couple of mentors or a couple of people that I saw occasionally, and otherwise, God taught me everything I know, and my just willingness to seek a deeper purpose. But I also, I studied famous famous and authors like Wayne Dyer. He's amazing. He was the person that endorsed the Charm Journey, and I followed his teachings, and I followed people who knew more than me in the area that I was excited about, that I was enthusiastic about, and I learned from them, and I actually applied them to my life. It isn't a big secret. The world isn't a big secret. It's extremely upfront and honest, but whether or not you want to see the truth or you want to live in denial, that's your deal. That's to each his own again, but if you really want to transform your life, then you're going to have to get really honest with how you're showing up in this world. And again, that goes back to your energy. What are you emanating and what are you feeding yourself?
You had said something that made me think of something, because you were like, how are you going to implement it into your world? And that's really important, because you can take all of this knowledge and you can learn and listen and read, but sometimes I think it's the implementation that I think sometimes is hard, the execution, actually doing these things, but then being consistent in doing them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when we read books, we're just gathering data and information, but you don't know. You don't really truly understand the lesson until you do it, until you're presented with an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity to execute what you just read in that book, and now the universe is providing you with an experience to live it, and that takes a lot of faith, and that takes trust. So that goes deeper into what do you believe in about yourself. So you gotta when you're confronted with like the most challenging, darkest moments in your life, you got to dig, and you got to dig deep within your own heart. You got to dig down deep into who am I and who do I want to be in this world, and then you let that power come out, and that's been my journey.
I have read that sometimes when you are doing just that, what you said, digging deep, really being honest with who you are and yourself and how you are, that sometimes it can be a very painful and lonely process, because you are really starting to realize things about yourself that maybe you didn't want to admit, that were always there, but you didn't really want to admit them, right? And that can be incredibly painful.
Yes.
And then you find yourself that you sometimes have to let go of people too in your life to get to that next place that you want to be, because those people are in fact holding you back. And sometimes it's hard to let those people go as well.
Right. It is challenging. It has been a lonely journey, especially 10 years ago when I first started writing, when I wrote the Charm Journey, when I sat down and wrote it one day, it was extremely lonely. I had maybe a couple of friends and a few clients that believed in me, and that was it. But I just stayed really focused on listening to what my heart says that my journey was in this life is all about. So I just kind of eliminated the outside voices and just stayed focused on, the one voice. And that's what I did. I just put one foot in front of the other, but I didn't know what the big picture was going to look like. And so, in doing this work, everybody says, well, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd use it. And, but I do know what feels right and what feels authentic. And and I do know what the heart says, and I do know how the mind tricks us. So, it's being able to differentiate between the two different voices.
So I read a lot about when you are changing, like a lot of the things that we believe we got from our childhood, because we were told things over and over again. Like an example is maybe the way that you view money, right? Because your parents are always like, money's hard to get, or you got to work hard for it. So that's always been something that's been instilled with you, and that's maybe what you believe today. And I had read to change that belief that you must go into, try to connect with your subconscious and reprogram that belief to money is abundant. And if that's one of the things that you believe, you're trying to change beliefs that are kind of ingrained in you, right? How would you suggest somebody really connect with their subconscious to start changing those negative beliefs?
Through reflection of what you're seeing in the outside world, because the subconscious is what attracts situations to you. So paying attention, you got to really pay attention. So you got to open your eyes and take off those rose-colored glasses, and that's the first step. And then it is, so let's just use the money situation. Like money is evil. Only these people can have money, which is so silly, because money is it's just a flow of energy. All it is energy. And when you believe, when you truly, it's more than believing I deserve that, or I can earn that. It's knowing that you can, because money is just a flow of energy, and energy comes from God. So it's just you give, it's just give and receive. It's just a constant flow. What you get is what you have to give back. And as long as you keep that flow moving, it begins to flow into your life, and it shows up. But when I began writing A Charmed Journey, I didn't have the resources. I had to trust that God would provide, even though I didn't know how it would even come about. And at the time, I couldn't afford an editor. I couldn't afford a writing coach. I couldn't afford a great cover designer. Everything that I did was based off of my phone or my computer, something that was in myself. But I trusted that the right people would show up at the right time. And I just stayed very focused on how I could serve people, and how I felt like I could serve people was through sharing my life experiences. And if one person just commented and said, "You changed my life," or I realize now what a great, how loving this universe is, then job well done. Then I just great, done. My duty is done here. So that it has been so rewarding to be able to share my experiences, and then people come out and they say, "Oh my gosh, I feel the same way," or "My journey's been very similar to yours." I think that sometimes we feel ashamed or we feel guilty, or a lot of resentment for our history. And if we continuously to look at it from that perspective, unfortunately, that's what we're going to continue to create in our world. So you've got to change the way that is recreating your future. So that's really important, so understanding the subconscious, it's more than, it is about affirmations. It is about, validating self. You got to go to the mirror. You got to do mirror work. You have to, journal. You have to do whatever it is to you to get to that place deep within your own heart. And so I love Mother Nature. I love being outside. I have a horse, and I like, shoveling manure. I like playing in the dirt, and I like driving my car. I swear I have more miles on my car than anybody I ever know, and I just run in circles most of the time. But that's where I get my inspiration, is when I'm outside or when I'm driving in my car. It isn't like when I'm sitting in the yoga position and having a particular mudra. That isn't it at all. It's what speaks to your soul and what feeds your spirit is how you connect.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that maybe there's a blueprint, a step-by-step guide on how to get there. One size fits all, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's not, because it's your feeling, it's your experience, it's what you know inside yourself, right? And I think you said two things that you said resonated with me. Trust, because you have to trust in yourself, first of all. You have to trust in the universe, but you also have to have faith, because with faith you have no results without faith.
None. I wouldn't have gotten this far without faith, and I wouldn't have gotten this far without trust. And there wasn't anything in the last 8 years that proved to me in the outside world that this was going to work. Nothing. Zero. And in fact, I felt like I had to encounter more challenges and obstacles. But again, you have to keep your inner circle really close. You have to serve. You have to give back. And when we operate from a space of scarcity and fear, unfortunately, it shows up. It manifests itself in so many different types of faces that it's almost mind-boggling when you really pay attention to what is being represented, to you in your own world.
Yeah, somebody had once told me that you shouldn't come from a place of lack. It shouldn't be a place of, like you said, scarcity or lack. You should come from a place of love and abundance and knowing that it's going to be okay and there's enough for everybody and those types of things. And so that's how I try to think about things and I've learned over time, and this has taken a lot of practice, is when I start having those not so nice conversations with myself, I can instantly turn it around.
That's what you need to do. We have to course correct our own selves, right? And there isn't anybody that lives in our skin but us. So we have to listen to ourselves, repeat the same phrases over and over again. And when yes, you can repeat to yourself the universe is abundant and it provides, but until you really get it by having that experience that proves to you that yes, you do have help. The universe is very loving and very forgiving, but it doesn't happen within your time frame. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. I mean,
and it doesn't show up. It doesn't show up the way that you think it should either.
Never.
It never shows up the way that you had it in your head, and that's, I think, sometimes it shows up, and you have to be opened. Right? You have to be open.
You have to be open. Again, that goes to trust and being vulnerable to what is going to show up, and being able to confront your fears. And I tell you what, those fears they're dark and they're convincing. So you just got to be able to look at it and just march right through it and say, not today, you don't, because I know who I am, and that is part of my own belief system around what God is to me, and that unlimited power of love that moves through us, that always is there, but we have to seek that as well.
Yeah, I would agree. So when I was reading your bio, and you're intuitive, you have a gift, clairvoyance is one of the things I saw. Is it pronounced Reiki? Reiki? Reiki, right. A Reiki master, but I've never heard of clairaudience. What is clairaudience? That was in your bio. What is that?
I think that's, like clear hearing, when we can, we can either we're either visual, right? So we can, we see pictures, right? As a clairvoyant would. Clairaudient would be clear hearing. And then clairsentience is clear knowing. So it's working with all the senses within the body to be able to feel what's going on in the world. And I would say that I'm probably all of those.
No, that's cool. I just had never heard that term before, but I know what you're saying. So I just thought I would ask you real quick. So I just have a couple of more questions for you because I'm absolutely fascinated with your book. So since you have written this book back in 2014, is this the only book that you've written, or do you have other books?
Well, my second book is Trigger the Wonder Horse, and it's my horse. He's like 42 years old. I think he's around 42 years old. I don't really know his age. I know he's old. Well, I know he's old. I know he's a little old man. And I wrote his book because he is such a blessing to me. And animals are amazing spiritual teachers. And he taught me about trust. He taught me about, respect. Animals teach about respect. They teach you about boundaries. They teach you about love. I unconditionally love him. And he's been my rock my whole life. So I wrote his book about hope, faith, and miracles with the intention that it makes it to the big screen someday, because it's one of those stories where we were completely done, out of energy, out of resources, out of time, out of everything. And God showed up, and he's still, and since that moment, we have given back through the ways of, doing charity events or going through senior centers or hospitals to elementary schools to teach the message of kindness and love and compassion and faith too, because again, I wouldn't be here without walking in faith, and that journey hasn't been easy.
How long have you owned the horse?
25, 26 years. I've had him longer than I've had anything besides, my family, my brother, my dad, my grandparents and stuff like that.
So here's a question from somebody who really doesn't know anything about horses. Mm-hmm. How long do horses normally live?
Everyone asks me this. I like everyone. I don't know, I think the average lifespan of a horse is between 20 and 30 years old, depending on how well you take care of them. But I'm like, we're staying alive, Trigger. We have things to do. So, And
you still ride him?
Oh, no, I don't ride him. He's just
okay.
Pet. He's been my pet for just the last 5 years. He truly lives his best life. I kid you not. He lives his best life. He has more love and generosity than anything I've ever seen. And I don't just consider him my horse. I consider him everybody's horse. So, because I share him with everybody and I share his life with everybody because he makes me happy. And I've found that he makes other people happy too. So why not show his mug?
And when did that book come out?
3 years ago. Well, around 2.5, 3 years ago.
So we've got The Charmed Journey and Trigger the Wonder Horse are two of your books that are available right now on Amazon.
Amazon, correct. And they're either in Kindle form or, paperback. And then my next goal is to write a children's book and then possibly a series from that. But got to start somewhere, so I'll just start with one children's book.
So now that you are a 2-book author with number 3 in the works, did you know that you were going to be this author? Now, would you now call yourself an author, Angela?
Yeah, I'm an author, and I published a book. It's just what I had to do. It's awesome. It's great. I'm glad I did it, but it's just part of the journey.
I'm glad you did it too. So I always like my authors to leave us with one sentence of inspiration or any knowledge that you want to pass on in any area, either be it something from your book or if you have any knowledge to somebody who maybe wants to become published, or what would you just leave us with today?
Well, as Oscar Wilde would say, be yourself because everyone else is already taken. And I think we try to conform to other people's standards or expectations of what our life should be like. And nobody knows what our journey is. And not even our family knows what our journey is about, except for us. So that's so important to tune in and listen and find that path of faith that works for you, and just do that. And as long as you come from your heart and you really understand the morals and ethics involved with the heart, and what that means to show up as a good person, capital GOOD, think of it so much about what is it about me, because it isn't about you, it's about others. But at the end of the day, it's really about you. So it's always, like I said, it's a continuous flow of energy. What we give is what we get back, and karma is real.
Yeah, karma is real. I 100% agree with you. It is real.
And she'll come knocking on your doorstep. So you got to be really careful about what you're doing, saying, how you show up in the world.
Absolutely. Angela, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your book, A Charmed Journey, an Inspired Guide to Personal Transformation. I'm so happy that we met. You are now an official member of the book club, which means you are welcome to come back anytime. If you want to come back again and talk about your book, about Trigger, I would love to hear more about that book. It sounds like, because you said that, it's one of those books that could translate to the screen. It's probably one of those feel-good movies that would have you in tears, and I love movies like that. But anytime there's animals in movies, right?
I know. So, I don't watch those movies. But I know this one's got a happy ending, so I'm like, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it, God, whatever you say. And so I know it's got a happy ending.
So you are always welcome to come back. Thank you so much for coming on today and being a part of the book club. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And I'm truly humbled, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. We just wrapped up with intuitive coach, spiritual healer, and author Angela Lenhardt. Angela talked about her book, A Charmed Journey, an Inspired Guide to Personal Transformation. She also wrote a second book about her horse, Trigger. Both of the books are available on Amazon. If you are an author or someone who supports authors, we would love to have you on the podcast. It's really easy. All you have to do is email me at brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Next week, another author, another member of the book club. So glad that you're listening. Happy that you are here with me. Until next time, keep writing.